On this episode, we speak to labor and employment attorney Sandra Jean, who will shed some light on the role of human resources and the benefits offered by your employer as it relates to domestic violence. Good morning, Sandra. It's so good to have you with us this morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Good. It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm telling you, it is such an honor to be in company of great women like yourself. And and I know whenever we get together, it's always powerful, it's always informative, it's always a good time. So I look forward to this segment with you and talking about the subject of the month, bringing awareness to domestic violence and how it relates to HR, what you do. I want you to take a minute to introduce yourself and what you do in the community.
Okay, well, I'm Sandra. I moved to Atlanta back in 2008 and shortly thereafter became involved with the refugees from Haiti after the earthquake. And from there, I became one of the founders of the Georgia Haitian American Chamber of Commerce that was incorporated June 2011. I served my time with the chamber. I gave all that I could and then moved on. I took a respite. And now it's under Sorrel. I'm also a labor and employment attorney. Right now, I am the vice president of human resources for the company I work for, which is CHSGA, and it's a long-term care company. Essentially, I oversee 54 locations within the state of Georgia, and I support all the HR functions for the 54 locations. I have a team of 6, and I'm also the in-house counsel. I'm a labor and employment attorney. I've been an attorney since, 1997, barred in Massachusetts first, and then since 2009 in Georgia.
That's wonderful. It's absolutely great to have you here with us today as a resource. And I hope that we can reach a lot of women. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and what we're doing is throughout the month to make sure we talk about issues that maybe we are not so aware of. And before we get to that, to your field as it relates to the subject, I wanted to know, so you've talked about how you've been in the community. Have you seen evolution in the community as the community evolved since you've seen it?
Yes.
Since you've been in it? Yes.
And in fact, I'll just say this. I saw that you were doing the series and I reached out because I believe in the work that International Women of Hope is doing. When domestic violence is taboo in our community. A lot of women, mostly women, suffer or are victims, but they won't speak up about it because it's not encouraged by our community, by our leaders. It's something that women are supposed to deal with. And I remember when IWOH first started, I call it IWOH, but International Women of Hope, first started, and you guys were the first organization that really brought this issue to light. And I remember one of the first meetings I went to, it was not received well. Many of the men felt that just by talking about the issue, it was an attack on them and on their families. And to my surprise, the church leaders also didn't want to talk about it. It's something that you're supposed to pray about and just, I guess, deal
Forget about it.
Yes. And you guys took that issue head on and brought it to the forefront where you were never deterred by the lack of enthusiasm from the community, and there were a lot of people that supported you guys as well. So I believe in the work that you do, and that's the reason I reached out, because I wanted to see if I can be a resource and share some of the things that I know, being in HR and also being a labor and employment attorney, to speak to women about benefits they may have at work that they're not necessarily tapping into, as well as some employment rights that they have that they can draw upon so that they can help themselves if they're victims.
Okay. So speaking of benefits, we'll go right into it. Speaking of benefits, what are some of the benefits when you speak of benefits? All the laymen, all of us regular folks, we only think about medical, dental, vision, and that's as far as it goes. And if you get days off, you get covered, and that's it. What are some of the more benefits out there that we don't know about that we should be aware of?
Okay. I mentioned earlier I'm in long-term care, so that's skilled nursing homes, basically taking care of the elderly and folks that need short-term care. And many, I would say 80%, if not 90% of our workforce is female. They're women. And a lot of them are single moms, or sometimes they're not, and they should be single moms, but they're in marriages that are not necessarily conducive to them being a good person or a good employee. One of the things that I notice that they do is if they happen to be victims and they're going through the situation, there's this shame about bringing the issue to the forefront. But what happens is they become distracted, they're not performing as well as they need to, and it becomes a performance issue. What I encourage them to do is to be open about it. They could go to their supervisors, or they can reach out to human resources, because that's what human resources does. They work on benefits that are to the good of the employees. So very often, to what you said before, employees may not know what's out there for them, but if they reach out and say, I'm going through this, and I'd like to know what I can do because I want to be a good worker, but I'm calling in late, or sometimes I have to miss work. What are some of the things that are available? I can speak to the benefits at my job. We have a foundation, and we actually help people that are going through hard time to fill out an application, and we help them with their rent or mortgage payments, car payments, sometimes food, whatever they might need to get through a difficult time. We have what's called the Employee Assistance Program, which is a great benefit to many, and many employers offer that benefit. It's just people are not taking advantage of it. But usually, the Employee Assistance Program offers resources to individuals and their family members, resources such as counseling, financial resources, legal support, you name it, it's out there. But people just need to make sure they understand what those resources are and tap into them.
Do you have to be a certain level, type of a big name company to have, like for example, I work for Emory. I know Emory offers some of these programs, but let's say a much lower company. Are they? Do they have these programs, or how do you find out if these programs exist?
Very good question, because most people would think that only the bigger providers offer these resources, but in fact, many small companies are now offering these resources because they understand that your employee can only give you their best if they are at their best. So a lot of employers are now realizing that the cost to participate and offer these resources outweighs stuff like turnover. You don't want to lose somebody that you've invested time and money to train, and then now they're going through something and you have to turn the person over. It's cheaper to offer these resources. Your question about how do you find out? Human resources. Just be open, be proactive, go to your human resources person and say, hey, what are some of the benefits that are available to me? We all know when we do orientation, we're drinking from a fire hose. We're signing a lot of paperwork, a lot of information, videos, everything's coming at us, and we barely remember half of the things that we're, told. And so the best thing is to just go to your supervisor, go to your HR, and ask, what are some of the things that are available to me? Go ahead.
I have a question. What about an employee maybe is scared or has some type of fear that if she tells what's going on, that maybe they'll let her go, or people at work will know her business. How do you go about relieving some of that fear from an employee or woman that's going through something and is just afraid to just tell somebody at work?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, because I deal with that. And many people are afraid because if they open up, then somebody's going to know something's wrong with them. And then they start scrutinizing their work as opposed to giving them a break. So what I tell them in those circumstances is most often they won't go to their supervisors because that's the person that oversees the work that they do. So I tell them go to HR. Usually HR is independent from operations. And so you can tell us certain things that we can deal with and help you without us even letting your supervisor know. So the best way, if you feel that your supervisor won't be supportive during your time of need, is to go to HR and say, this is what I'm going through. I don't want my supervisor to know. What are some of the things that I can do to help me during this time? And then they'll be able to help. Like I said, HR never wants turnover. We want people to stay. We want to build upon your skill set and your knowledge base. But when sometimes operations are more, the people in operations are more about the performance and the outcome and the end result, and they're not necessarily thinking of the person, that's where HR fills in the blank.